Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Steady Horse Live. I'm super excited to be able to be here again and to go over different questions and chat with everybody this week. And I'm super excited to see the questions, and I'm always excited as you guys are jumping on in and saying where you're from and letting us know where you're from. So also, don't forget, make sure you stick around until the very end, because at the end, as is custom now, we'll be giving away a giveaway. So super excited about that as well. And again, don't forget, as you jump on in, make sure you say howdy, let us know where you're from, that kind of thing. As usual, I always like to start with a handful. Some of the questions that Steady Horse Club members submit to me, usually via email or Facebook Messenger, and I like to go over some of those first, and then as you guys jump on in, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have had. Okay, and so we'll get right away in just a little bit here. Let's see. I see Alicia. I see you jumped on in. Hey, Alicia. Hope you're doing well. I see, for some reason, it's not showing me. Okay. I see Leanne just jumped on in. Hey, Leanne. I hope that Bentley and Drifter are doing well. I saw that y'all had a good trail ride over the weekend, so that's super exciting. Awesome. And I see Claire jumping on. Howdy, Claire. Good to see you. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here in just a moment. And it looks like we have a little bit of lag on the video. I hope everybody's seeing everything okay, but it's kind of funky on my end, so if it's going slow, I'm not sure what's going on, but bear with us here. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question here. This is from Leslie Kim, and she says, my daughter adopted a 3-year-old wild Mustang. How can we train him to lead? Also, she has been picking up his front feet, but she's lacking confidence to pick up his hind feet. So how can we start working with his hoofs? So, that's awesome that you adopted a wild Mustang. Super, super excited for y'all. I mean, some of these horses need homes. And so for you guys to be able to provide them a home is absolutely awesome. One of the things about a wild Mustang is that they're very instinctual. They have very strong fight-flight responses because they have grown up in the wild. And so those are survival mechanisms that those horses have built into them to help them survive. So it's important to be very, very patient and gradual with everything you do, because even things that we take for granted, like being in a stall or a paddock, I mean, those are completely foreign, brand new concepts to that horse. So during this time, he's going through a radical change in how things have been used for him. So everything's new, everything's different, okay? So let's make sure that you're accommodating in that fashion. Don't ask for too much too soon. So when you're asking your horse how to lead, typically when you ask a horse to lead, you'll pick up that lead rope and start walking, and the expectation is that that horse will start walking with you, right? That they're following your lead. One of the things that you might want to start with is start with just light pressure on that lead rope, just a little bit of pressure, and maintain that pressure. Don't go to tugging and pulling and expecting him to move right off of that pressure, but maintain that pressure until he gives you just a little bit of forward, okay? Because that's the goal, right? Is just to get him to understand that when I apply pressure on that lead rope, and think about the way that the lead rope connects to the halter, and when it connects to the halter underneath that ring, it's pulling on that halter, right? And what's happening is as it pulls on that ring underneath there, or rope, if you have a rope halter, it's putting pressure behind the pole. So that's where the pressure's coming from. And so the goal is for your horse to actually move away from that pressure and move in the direction that the pressure is pulling them. So the moment you see your horse even pull that head forward, release, right? Because he's moving in the right direction. And then, of course, take a deep breath, rub and love on it, and let him know that he's doing a great job. So start simply and gradually, and then work up your expectation. So then next, you might maybe look for that horse to lean forward and shift their weight from their hind end onto their front end. Release, because that's progress. Eventually, maybe you might look for one step and then start gradually building and increasing your expectation. Don't ask for too much too soon. Make sure you end on a good note. Super important to end when that horse is doing well and moving out confidently. A good tip that you can use too is sometimes when a horse is apprehensive about going forward and you're pulling straight, go ahead, you can kind of throw off the angle. And so instead of pulling straight forward, if they have those feet planted, kind of move off to the side and swing around. And that kind of helps to throw them off balance a little bit. And they'll have to kind of step forward to kind of keep their balance. And you can release the pressure, and then they'll realize, oh, when I moved forward, the pressure was released. Okay, so that's the part about leading. This was a two-parter. So the next part was about those hind feet. Super important, to be careful when you're working with those hind feet. Of course, we know that our horses can kick at us, etc. So you got to be really careful there. I like to always start with just doing some simple desensitizing with my steady stick, making sure that that trainer attachment, that long lash portion that goes on the stick, that is kind of going around underneath those feet, around those feet, behind those feet, and that my horse is super 100% comfortable with that first before I move on to anything else. They should be able to stand still, relax, taking deep breaths, and I should be able to engage those hind feet with the trainer attachment on my steady stick, so that I'm not going to put myself in a vulnerable situation where that horse might be able to kick out and injure me, right? After that, then I'll go to using my soft rope, which is basically just a long rope. My soft ropes are usually about anywhere from 12 to 14 feet long, okay? And I'll start by putting that rope around them and working it around those hind feet. And the key here is to make sure if your horse starts kicking out when you're putting pressure on that hind feet, keep kind of working that rope nice and relaxed until they stop kicking out and they set that foot down. Then I'll take the pressure away and let them know that they did a good job. And you can definitely go through the soft rope exercises in the Steady Horse Club, and you'll see a number of different soft rope exercises that you can use to build your horse's confidence to give to that pressure with their feet rather than fighting it, okay? I see a lot of people, they're getting underneath their horses and they're yanking, fighting, and holding, and it's not only is it dangerous, but it's taxing, it's tiring. Your horse could end up sitting back, you could get hurt. It's not worth it. Go through the process of gradually getting them used to handling those feet kind of one step at a time, and eventually you'll build their confidence so that they trust you, that when you get up underneath them and you're picking up those feet, that you're going to take care of them, that you're going to be respectful of them, that you're going to give them those feet back, and they don't have to worry about getting in a foot trap or anything like that. So that's my recommendation there. Awesome question, Leslie. And super excited that you and your daughter were able to adopt that 3-year-old wild Mustang. So I wish you guys best of luck. Okay, so a bunch more of y'all have jumped on in here. Let me say hello to some of y'all. I see Terry. I see you jumped on in here. Howdy, Terry. And Sherry from Michigan. I see Cheryl from Florida. Tina from Florida as well. Welcome. I see Jasmine hailing from Virginia here. We got Alicia from Hondo. Hi, Alicia. Good to see you this evening. Carmen. Hi, Carmen. And we got Jane from Michigan and April from Minnesota. Oh, and we have Anne-Marie who jumped on in too. Good to see you, Anne-Marie. I'm so glad that a bunch of y'all are jumping on in here. And again, there's a bunch of lag on my end. So if you jumped on and I haven't said hello, so sorry. I'm not ignoring you. It's just taking a while for it to catch up and show me who's jumping on in here. Okay. Next question I have here, and this is from Patricia. It says, my new horse is barn sour. He can be pushed to go out, but will run home given the chance. Any suggestions? So this issue of barn sour horses is very common. And, a lot of times we create this problem without even realizing it. So something to think about while you're riding your horse or trail riding your horse. A lot of times I see people, they'll start off on the trail ride, they're leaving the barn, and they start at a nice walk. And then when they get out on the trail, they might do a little bit of walking and trotting and cantering, that kind of thing in different areas. They're hanging out with the other horses. And then I see a lot of people who are trotting back to the barn or cantering back to the barn. These are two huge no-nos for trail horses. And, what happens is if you take your time and you're doing a lot of work away from the barn and then you just run your horse or let your horse trot back to the barn, then what you're teaching them is, hey, the sooner we get to the barn, the sooner you get to rest and relax. And then typically when most people get back to the barn, what do? They climb off their horse, they might cool them down, put them up, feed them, that kind of thing, right? And so what we're doing is without realizing it, we're reinforcing them that, hey, the barn is the best place to be, the trail, not so much. So I want you to be in a hurry to get back to that barn. And so that's what that horse is thinking, okay? So you want to keep that in mind when you're working with a barn sour horse. So the idea here is you need to make going back to the barn work. In fact, it's a good idea when you have a trail ride to work your horse at the barn. Like get those feet moving, do some sending, some lunging. If your horse canters really well, do some cantering around the barn area. Work them back and forth. Make them move on their hind end. Really get them working. And then once you face away from the barn and you're going down the trail, take a nice big deep breath. Relax. Let them just take a nice brisk walk and enjoy the opportunity to leave the barn, right? So that trail leaving the barn, you're giving them an out, okay? So then second, you're heading back now to the barn. I want you to do lots of starts and stops. They might start trot up, I'm bringing you back down to a stop. And then I might circle you around where you are, and then start and stop, and then we're gonna circle again. So as they're going back to the barn, instead of giving them some rein and letting them just trot back and walk really fast or whatever, we're saying, hey, this is gonna be work, So the faster you are, the more work you're gonna do. But if your horse starts to lower that head and relax and enjoy that opportunity to walk back, well, you're going to leave them alone. But the moment they start to pick up that excitement and want to move out, you're going to get after them and get them moving. And then once you get to the barn, do another 20 minutes of work with them. Making them work. Go back to doing some cantering, work on whatever different exercises you've been working on with your horse that week. And then finally, kind of don't dismount right at the barn, kind of walk them away from the barn, dismount there and just stand there for a little bit and let them rest away from the barn, closer to the trail or the direction where you're riding, and then walk them back to the barn afterwards. In fact, it's even more ideal if you have an area away from the barn where you can tie your horse to let them rest and relax, to reinforce the idea that the barn isn't necessarily the place where you get all of your reward, right? That there's lots of reward to be sought and to be had away from the barn when you're with me, wherever I ask you to go. And the sooner your horse learns that, the more inclined they are to also trust that anywhere you ask them to go is going to be a safe place. It's going to be a good place for your horse. So great question there, Patricia. And I hope that helps you with your horse there. Okay, so we've had a couple more people jump on. I want to say hi to Mo from Florida, and I see Sandy from New Hampshire, Margaret from Texas. Howdy, Margaret. We got Cynthia from Washington State, Terry from California, Dawn from Indiana, Lisa from Kansas, Michelle from Florida, and Kelly. Howdy, Kelly. Good to see everybody. I'm glad we got a bunch of y'all jumping on here this evening. Okay, I'm going to try and knock out a couple more of these member questions, and then we'll go into some of the questions that you guys have thrown up here this evening. So I've got a question from Beth, and it says, excuse me, one moment here. It says, I'm new to training horses. The man I bought my 2-year-olds from insisted that I must break my horses by forcing and beating them down. I really don't agree with his methods at all after watching some of your videos. I want to build a relationship with my horse over this summer and earn her love and trust. Any suggestion on how I should go about this? That's a great question, and I'm glad that you've enjoyed more of the gentle, softer, kinder way that I like to work with my horses. And you know, it's really interesting because a lot of people still can be pretty tough and rough with horses, and not only is it not fair to our horses, but man, it takes so much longer, and it's such a harder way to teach a horse how to do anything. One of the things that I would recommend, first of all, especially if you're new to training horses, is try to find somebody that can give you some guidance local to where you are. Try to find someone that kind of has the same types of approaches that we endorse here at Steady Horse, you know, because it's all about your approach, right? I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you, you can use any type of training system, method, whatever, and you might be able to get results. But the truth is, if you don't have the right approach with your horses, you're not going to get the best results. And that's what counts more than anything, is the way you approach things with your horses. Because we're all about creating a bond and a relationship, like you alluded to. You know, having that relationship, that companionship with our horses, where we have a relationship where we're being loving and kind to our horses. And because of that, we earn our horses' respect. We don't just force our horses' respect by making them change directions and canter around us and do this and do that. We're really earning it by being really good, faithful leaders to them, and that's what your horse is looking for. So it sounds like you're on the right direction, and it sounds like you're not drinking the Kool-Aid and the poison of all the folks that are telling you to get after your horse or whack this horse and that kind of thing, and that's really good. I want to encourage you to stay the course. Make sure that if you're starting training again, you said you're just new to training horses, so make sure that you get some direction, get someone that's been at it and has some experience to help give you some guidance, to give you a third eye to kind of look and see what's going on. And then, of course, you know, there's so many resources here in the Steady Horse group, and people are so encouraging and loving towards each other. And so any questions that you might have along the way about specific things, throw them up in the Steady Horse group, and I guarantee you're going to get a lot of really, really good information that is going to be very useful and go a long way for you. So sounds like you're on the right direction, and I just want to encourage you to seek all the help and support that this community here has to offer you. And of course, Beth, if you have any specific questions, shoot me an email, and I'll be more than happy to assist you, of course. Okay, so we've had a couple more folks jump on in here. We've got Elaine Smith from Oregon. Good evening. We got Lisa McAllister from Arkansas, and then Denise from Nebraska, and Rebecca from North Carolina. Good evening, y'all. Glad y'all could make it over and jump on in tonight. Okay, so this is going to be the last of the member questions, and then I'm going to jump into some of the questions that you guys have already posted. As usual, Peter's been posting them up on a screen here for me, so I've got quite a few here I'm going to try and get at here. So this last one that I have here on this list is from Raya Campbell. And it says, I can halter my horse easily, but putting the bridle on is a nightmare. I use a hackamore, and she hates the bit. I have put a bit in by wrapping it in bread, but getting a headstall in is another matter. What should I do? Okay, so this is an incredibly common issue that people have, is with bridling their horses, head-shy horses, horses that clench their mouth real tight and they don't want to put the bit in. And so what happens is I see a lot of people going, instead of correcting the problem, they'll go to either bitless or bridleless, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can ride a horse really well in either or, but you definitely want to work your horse through that problem too, if they won't open that mouth for you, because it's just one more way to introduce softness into your horse, right? To teach them how to give to pressure, to be with you, to trust you, okay? When you think about it, the mouth is a very vulnerable place. You don't just let anybody go and stick their fingers in your mouth. That would be ridiculous. The same is true with horses. You watch them grazing and what they do with their mouths and how they groom each other and that kind of thing. And even with horses, you don't see them sticking their hoofs in other horses' mouth. You've got to make sure you're very respectful with that mouth. And so just like with everything else, you got to be super gradual. If I have a horse that's really bad about that bit, the first thing I might start with is even just a soft rope, seeing if I can get them to put a soft rope in their mouth. And once they put it in there and they accept it, I'll immediately remove it and rub and love on them. Let them know that they did a good job and that I appreciate that, hey, you're being pretty vulnerable with me. You're trusting me. A lot of times we ask so much of our horses and we take so much for granted and we don't realize how much heart and effort and soul they pour out in order to please us and to work with us. So it's so important to make sure that as we're working with them, that we are affirming them. We're telling them, good job, thank you, you're doing awesome, okay? So just make sure that you're gradual with the process. I would start with a soft rope, get him with that. Then I'd work to just putting that rope over his ears, making sure that you can take that rope on his ears and then take it off and over it and rubbing that rope all over him. And then do the same thing with the bridle. You can just start with just hooking the bridle over his ears without even asking him to put the bit in his mouth and making sure that he's good with that. Then go to just putting the bit in his mouth without the bridle. You see what I'm saying here is break it down into the most smallest steps that you possibly can in order to build his confidence. And when you're a part of building his confidence, you're not just teaching him how to bridle, you're also teaching him that he can trust you. And that is more important than any other thing that you could ask your horse to do. So take it nice and slow. Make sure you reward any slight amount of progress. Don't focus on getting him to just open his mouth, slide that bit in, get the ears underneath the brow bit. That's not the goal. The goal is for your horse to link up, to sync up, to bond with you, to trust you. And so move step by step. And if you take your time and you're patient, you'll get there. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is, because now we've started these Thursday in-depth lessons that we're throwing up there. And I recently, like in the last couple months or so, I did a video specifically about the right way to bridle versus the wrong way to bridle. And so I think for our in-depth lesson this Thursday, we're going to go ahead and post that up there. So keep an eye out for that, Raya, and that will also help you so that you can see kind of hands-on me working with the horse and helping that horse to bridle correctly. Some really great questions today. I'm going to jump into some of the questions that you guys have thrown up here on Facebook. And but before I do that, I see a couple more of you guys have jumped on in here. So I wanted to say hi to Cynthia from Texas and Kaylee from Louisiana and Michelle. Welcome, everybody. Glad y'all could jump on in and be with us this evening. Okay, so first one from this evening that you guys have posted, I've got this one from Sherry Rayner. It says, how do I teach my 2-year-old filly about personal space? She wants to crowd me, especially when I'm leading her. Okay, so here's the thing about personal space is number one is being clear in your communication, right? So a lot of times we can send mixed messaging, mixed signals to our horses without even realizing it, right? Because we all love our horses. We like to love on them and rub on them, etc., that kind of thing. We're super excited about, being able to spend time with them. But sometimes when you're training specific things, we need to make sure that we aren't putting too much praise or love on them in the wrong timing. Timing is so important. So if you're asking your horse to back off and stay away from you, but then the next moment, they go and they nuzzle in a little bit and, they sucker you in and you're in there and rubbing and loving and say, oh, sweet babe, you're actually confusing your horse because they're like, well, a moment ago, she was like, get off me, stay away. But then now she's like, hey, let me rub on you. You're my baby. You're my girl. So the important thing is to make sure you're very, very consistent, that you're communicating clearly. So if you want her to stay out of your space, which is important, especially for a filly, a young horse, they need to learn, like you said, that personal space. Make sure that you're consistently saying, no, no ma'am, backing her up and away from you when she tries to crowd on you, and this shaking on that lead rope and adding pressure and continuing to add pressure until she backs up. What I see a lot of people do is that horse might crowd their personal space and they'll say, quit, and they just get mad and they shake the rope, but they don't actually require that the horse actually does anything. And so all of the shaking of the rope and all that stuff is worthless because you're not actually pushing that horse away from you, right? So just make sure that if you start asking them to move away from you, that you continue that pressure until that horse physically moves away from you. Get her to take a step, 2 steps, 3 steps away from you. Work on backing up exercises so that she becomes accustomed, that she has a habit of moving away from you and ceding space to you in respect to the fact that, hey, when she asks me to move, I'm going to move. And I know that when I do move, that she's going to release the pressure. Let me know I did a good job. Now, here's the important thing. If you have a horse that's really creeping up in your space, when you back them up and they back up, don't go in there and start rubbing and loving on them to reward them. The reward is that you quit shaking that rope, that you quit adding pressure, take your deep breath, and just let them stand there nice and quiet and relaxed, okay? Because again, you don't want to confuse them. If you were to back them up and they back up and then you go in and you start rubbing on them, they're going to think, oh, let me come back into the space because she's inviting me in. So make sure you're very clear. Make sure you're very consistent with it. And if you're clear, consistent, of course, be gradual. Don't ask for too much too soon. You're bound to make tons of progress with your horse. And not just progress, but progress that's going to last. So definitely keep up with it. Make sure you stay on top of things and that you're clear and consistent, and you guys are going to do great. Okay, a couple more shout outs. I see Angie jumping on in here. Howdy, Angie. So glad you could join us. We've got Joyce and Pat from Louisiana, and we've got Malia. So glad y'all could jump on in here with us. Okay, and just a reminder, if you're jumping on in here, make sure you say hi. Let us know where you're from so that everybody knows where everybody's hailing from. I'm just always super excited to have all of y'all on in here, and glad that you guys can take some time out of your day so that we can all just sit down and chat a little bit this evening. Okay, I've got a question from Elizabeth Sue Bullard. It says, my trainer says my rescue mare may never be a safe horse to ride. That makes me really sad. She isn't mean. She just does not trust in people or herself. Is it possible that she may be able to get past that? So this is I'm gonna be completely honest with you. And the thing is, the important thing is your safety. That's number one, okay? And so any horse, in my experience, and I'd say any horse, I'd say 99.9% of horses can get through just about anything in my experience. Sometimes there's some physical things, some mental things that might make it difficult or challenging for a horse to make progress, but the majority of horses can make progress if they're trained properly and gradually enough, okay? So not just cramming stuff down their throat and having these harsh, unrealistic expectations. I'm talking about training in a way that's empathetic and fair, where we recognize what that horse is going through, where we're building a bond and a connection where that horse wants to work with us because we've been fair enough and loving enough with them to set them up in a position to be successful. Now, that being said, I don't know what this horse is doing. Your trainer has your best interest at heart. Just because, I might be able to get a horse to do something doesn't mean that everybody is always going to have the skill set to get through certain things. And so if your trainer is telling you, that this horse is just too dangerous, right? That this horse has a lot of stuff to work through, maybe you should defer to your trainer's expertise so that you don't put yourself or the horse in a situation where things get worse off. So the best thing to do is to kind of evaluate it and see where things are. If your horse needs somebody that has more expertise, a little bit more, then see if you can maybe be able to pair that horse up with somebody or a trainer that's going to be able to work them through that. Now, maybe your trainer doesn't feel comfortable addressing it. You might be able to look and work with the trainer to see if there's somebody else that might be able to address whatever the underlying issue is. But again, The number one thing is to have our horse's best interest at heart. And I see so often where people are forcing horses to do things that they don't have the ability or the know-how to work them through, or the experience, because experience counts for a lot with some of these really, really dangerous things. And things just end up getting worse for the horse instead of better. And obviously, we're all about making sure that our horses have the best footing to be successful and to do well. So again, make sure that you're setting that horse up for success. Yes, most horses can work through most things, but defer to your trainer, because you've put your trust in that trainer. And if that trainer doesn't feel comfortable with you interacting and with that horse in a certain capacity, I would definitely honor that and see if there's something that you can do going forward to maybe work with another trainer, or if the trainer has different ideas to try to get that horse through. But I'd be really curious, Elizabeth, in the future, maybe shoot me an email. Let me know exactly what's going on, and I might be able to give you some really good pointers to help you out with your horse. Great question. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Okay, a couple more shout outs. I see you guys jumping in. We have Letner from Savannah, Georgia, and we've got Lynn from Chicago. Oh, no, I'm sorry, from Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. We've got Candace, and we've got Denise and Charity that have jumped on in. So welcome. Glad you guys could join us this evening. And again, as you guys jump on in there, please continue to say howdy to us so that we know where everyone's hailing from. Okay, so the next Facebook question we have from this evening, this is from Lisa, and it says, my horse that I ride out is fine. The one I leave at home panics. How do I solve that? Okay. So again, this is another real common thing. You have a horse with an anxiety issue, right? So that horse that you leave at home might start pacing back and forth, whinnying, all those types of things. This is going to be an instance of working on that gradually, okay? So again, like a lot of things, when we break things down step by step to increase our horse's confidence, we're not only working our horse through that issue, but we're building their trust in you as a leader, because they know that you can get them through things, right? So I would start with when that horse is panicky and running back and forth, kind of see what that threshold is. Say you can maybe take that horse 100 feet away from the barn, but when you get to 110 feet, that mare starts freaking out, or that gelding starts freaking out. Well, then work at that 110 feet range, and just stand there until that horse relaxes, right? Then walk back over to the barn. So that way she knows, hey, this horse isn't leaving you. It's not going away forever, right? And then walk back out to that 110-foot mark until she gets comfortable with that. And then gradually increase your threshold bit by bit in order to help that horse understand that, hey, I'm here with you. I'm not taking your buddies away from you. They'll come back. And as long as you relax, I'll come back a little bit closer to you. Then she'll understand that there's some incentive in relaxing sooner, because she'll see her buddies sooner. So that's what I would recommend with that. Give that a try, and you will see progress with that. Just be patient and work with her step by step. Okay, Cynthia says, how do I get my horse to stand while mounting from a mounting block? I am 61 and 4'10". Okay, so that's a good question. A lot of horses, you'll find that you put the mounting block by them, they might start to move away from the mounting block. That's usually pretty common. They'll just step away from it, right? You'll get other horses who walk forward away. They just leave the mounting block. And then I recently had someone shoot me an email, and they were saying that their horse was backing away from the mounting block. So they put the mounting block down, and the horse would just start creeping backwards. Here's the thing. If your horse starts moving away, just continue to ask them to move away. Don't just let them move away. Make them move away. Make them moving away a chore, and get them kind of moving, kind of get their energy up. You don't want to get them excited, but get them moving out with a little bit of effort, get them breathing a little bit, and then give them the opportunity to stand nice and still by the mounting block. When you approach the mounting block, take a deep breath, rub and love on them, affirm that pony, let them know that's the best place in the world to be. But the moment they start to move away, I say, okay, you can move away, but I'm going to make you move away. I'm going to get you to move out with a little bit of energy, a little bit of purpose, get those feet moving. And then again, present the mounting block as an opportunity. This is really counterintuitive to a lot of people. They're like, well, if I want my horse to stand still, why would I send them out away from the mounting block and encourage that? Well, the answer to that is by encouraging that, you present to set them up to be successful by offering them the opportunity to rest by that block. And once they realize that that's actually a reward, that it's a good thing, they'll be more inclined to want to rest by that block. You can build that in other situations, like after you're done ground pinning your horse or ground working your horse, bring them by the block, let them rest. As you have them tied up, put the block there, rub and groom them out while they're by the block. Make the block a good thing, and they'll begin to learn to draw towards that box because they realize that that block is actually a good thing for them. So great question, and I hope that helps you with excuse me. I hope that helps you with working him through that so that he stands a little bit better for you. Okay, so we got a question here from Kelly. She says, how do you make sure your saddle fits and doesn't cause pain for your horse? So this is a really, there's a lot to this, okay? And it kind of depends on what kind of saddle, what kind of horse. There's a lot that goes through it, and a lot is basically by experience, to be honest with you. And so one of the things that you want to look for is you want to make sure that that saddle isn't rubbing or pinching your horse. And so literally what you can do is you can take a saddle, put it directly on your horse, and you want to make sure that the points of the saddle are clearing. Like you want to make sure there's clearance under that there's not excuse me. You want to make sure that there's enough clearance under the front of the saddle so that it's not rubbing on the withers, right? Because if that pommel is sitting on top of the withers, it can cause a lot of pain and discomfort for your saddle, right? You want to make sure that the swell underneath the saddle, and that's kind of where it's going to be that kind of dip in the saddle right where the front of your stirrup would be if it ties into the saddle. You want to make sure that fits right into the horse's back and that it's making good contact all the way through. You want to make sure that they're not dry or uneven wet spots when you're riding your horse after you take that saddle off. There's a number of things that you can do to try to make sure that that horse isn't going to be uncomfortable. Without seeing the specific saddle and the horse's build and the horse, I couldn't tell you specifically what to do because it's going to vary from horse to horse. And this is really important because there's a lot of things like this with horses where people will give you these hard and fast rules like, place the saddle a little bit behind the shoulder blade, or make sure that the saddle always has 6 inches of clearance underneath the pommel or whatever. And the truth is you can't really make those types of hard and fast rules without actually seeing the horse and the saddle. So I encourage you, see how it fits, kind of think about what you would feel like if that saddle were placed on you. Think about rubbing points, friction points. Think about places where contact would be. And also keep in mind that when you're in the saddle, that the saddle is going to sit a little bit lower than what you're seeing when you're not in the saddle. So some of it is some common sense stuff that you can kind of troubleshoot and take a look at and try to accommodate to make sure your horse is as comfortable as possible. And then there are other little nuances that you can get help with someone who knows a little bit more about your horse, that type of saddle. There's so many types of saddles out there that are going to fit your horse in different ways that will help you with that. And so I definitely encourage you, like if you're able to take a picture of the horse, take a picture of the saddle from different angles, go ahead and throw it up in the Steady Horse group. There's a ton of us out there that are knowledgeable. In fact, we even have some saddle fitters in the group that are experienced that can help you with that. So throw it out there, and I'm sure you'll get plenty of help for your specific situation. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Great question there. Okay, a couple more shout outs. I see Vanessa jumped on from California. We got Susan from Maryland. We've got Mel from Oklahoma, Jeannie from Colorado, And Melvin from Texas. Howdy, Melvin. Glad to have all y'all on board. And remember, if you're just jumping on, make sure you say hello. Tell us where you're from. Everyone's always excited to know where everybody's hailing from and where y'all are at. Okay, we've got this question from Michelle Brown. It says, my horse is 27 and in fairly good shape, but how old is too old to ride? I'm so used to her, and I'm older too, so I dread looking for and trying out new horses for me. So this is a question, again, just kind of depends on so many different things. One thing, number one, is I would make sure that I would help to make this determination in conjunction with your vet. You know, have your vet evaluate your horse and see how that horse's health looks, how the joints are looking. You know, does she have arthritis? Does she still have good conformation to carry a rider? Those types of things. You say she's fairly healthy. If she has good weight, the other thing to keep in mind for an older horse is the weight to rider ratio, to make sure that it's not too much of a burden for that horse. And then, of course, you know, there are things that you can do, from supplements to boots to shoes to angles, things that you can do to make sure that that horse is as comfortable as possible. The main thing that I look for, and again, I'm kind of stepping a little bit above my pay grade here because I'm not a veterinarian, but the main thing that I look for is that horse labored in their breathing? Are they sound, at least at a walk and a trot, right? Are they pretty sound, okay? Telltales are going to be, is that horse constantly stumbling? Is that horse getting winded? After you're done riding that horse, does it look like the recovery time for that horse is pretty significant? Those are the kinds of things that tell me, okay, you know, this horse is definitely getting near retirement age. You know, right nowadays with the feeds that we're feeding horses, the hoof care, the supplements, these horses are living longer and longer and are having very good, healthy, useful lives. And there's a lot of horses that can live pretty long and do pretty well and continue to work well into their years. So make sure you use good judgment and, of course, put the overall well-being of your horse first. Something, though, to keep in mind that I've seen, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, with an older horse that stops being worked regularly or ridden, I see that a lot of times those horses end up coming up with problems, because when you think about it, exercise is super healthy to keep that horse moving, right? So even if you make the determination that maybe that horse can't be ridden, don't stop exercising that horse. Keep that horse moving and working, because exercise is so good for a horse's overall health. God designed them to move, to work, to move out. And so when you take that away from them, when a horse stops moving, that's usually when they're getting to their end. But the more you can keep that horse working pretty regularly, the better for that horse. Great question. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. Okay, so we got a question from Celeste, and she says, thoughts on going bitless? Hate putting metal in my horse's mouth. Okay, so the whole bitless versus bit thing is a huge topic of discussion. A lot of people have a lot of strong opinions on that. And the truth is, it's just like anything else. It's all about your hands and knowing how to use whatever type of bridle apparatus you have. So if you're using bitless, you can do a lot of harm. Like with a hackamore, you can do a lot of harm with a horse if you are not using it properly and you're not being gradual and using soft hands. And of course, we know with some of these harsher bits out there, or even real simple snaffles or curbs, you can still do a lot of damage to a horse. The main thing is to be gradual in introducing whatever that is to your horse, being fair, and making sure you have realistic expectations. I see people throw random bits into their horse's mouth, and then they're yanking and pulling on them and expecting for them to perform for them in all sorts of manners that are really unfair and really haven't given the horse an opportunity to get used to this new thing that you're asking them to do. So whatever you try with your horse, make sure you're gradual. Make sure you do the research. Again, we got this great, huge community of people here at Steady Horse. You know, throw up a picture of it and ask for a little bit of help and guidance and what people suggest. But I definitely recommend being slow, being gradual, making sure you're setting your horse up to be successful by making sure that any little bit of progress they're giving to the pressure a little bit. Make sure you release. Let them know they're doing a good job. Start nice and light with your pressure, and stay nice and light with your pressure so that you're not being a burden on your horse. You're giving them good direction and leadership with your hands. Great question there, Celeste. Okay, a couple more shout outs. We've got Kay that's jumped on from Michigan, and Teresa from Ontario, Canada, and we've got Carolyn from New Hampshire. Welcome, Carolyn. And again, any of y'all that are jumping on in here this evening, just make sure you say hello. Let us know where you're from. Okay, so I'm going to do one last question here. And this is from Malia, and it says, what do you think about feeding a horse treats by hand? Thanks. Oh, that's a good question. I don't have a problem with hand treating a horse. It's really about how you do it and what that horse is going through. So I do have a problem. If you have a horse that nips or bites, the first thing I'll tell you is stop treating that horse, period. Hand treating, whatever. Stop treating that horse. That horse does not need to be receiving treats if it already is predisposed to biting and has a history of that. Because that's just encouraging that behavior. And a lot of times we're doing so without realizing it, okay? But for a healthy horse that's been taught to respect your space, not to be up all on top of you, that is recognized that there's certain boundaries, then it's okay to treat your horse by hand. But for me, I require that my horse does something for a treat. I won't just shove a cookie in their mouth, okay? So what that looks like is I might ask, hey, I might ask that horse to back up a little bit. I say, hey, back, back, back. Then I'll give them a rub, go in there, offer them a treat, right? I might look at that horse's hind quarter and ask them to move them away from me and cross over. Then I'll give them the treat. I'm not just going to give them the treat for the purpose of giving them a treat. I'm going to give them the treat, make them do something productive, and then I'll give them the treat, let them know that they did a good job. So just make sure if you're feeding by hand a treat to your horse that you ask them to do something first. It's not just, a free lunch, if you will. And of course, I don't encourage, if that horse starts seeking the treat, then you need to back them up out of your space and maybe stop giving as much treats. I don't like horses, searching your pockets and your shoulder and lipping you and things like that, because those are things that are eventually going to lead to biting if they remain unchecked. So, okay. Really, really great questions today. And also I see a couple more of you guys jumped on, so I just wanted to say hello. Lori from Fort Worth, Gail from Minnesota, Debbie from Michigan, and Susie from Alabama, and Jody from Atlanta. I want to jump right into our giveaway for today. So I'm going to, let's see, got this giveaway app on here. All the names are listed here. And the criteria this week for entering was simply just commenting the name of your horse. Lots of cool horse names I saw on there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the button here. And here it goes. A little bit of a drum roll here. And it says, and this is for a steady horse hat like this one here. It says Misty Christine Graves and her horse Cosmo. So Misty and Cosmo, y'all are the winners for your steady horse hat. So Peter will be contacting you to get your shipping information so that we can send out one of these steady horse hats to you that you can rock so stylishly. I am super, always super grateful for everybody jumping in for these steady horse lives and all the great questions. And of course, all of the super engagement that we have in this Steady Horse Facebook group and community. I see how it is so helpful. And I can't tell you the number of emails, messages I get from people that I meet who say that they have learned so much and feel like, being a part of the Steady Horse community is priceless. And, we're all about creating a bond with our horse, and part of creating that bond and learning how to be the best leader to our horse is by learning from each other, because everybody has something to offer. So I want to encourage you, Also, if you're not contributing to the Facebook group and jumping in there and commenting and giving useful advice, start doing that. Jump on in there. You've got something to say. You have something to share. You have an experience that you can let everybody else know about, and we're all excited to learn. I just want to let everybody know that I pray that as you work with your horses, that the Lord keeps you safe, that he protects you, that he encamps his angels around you, and that no harm would come to you. I pray that he keeps your horses and you healthy. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Y'all have a great evening.